Okay, let's get one game in. We're 1863. Good rating. 1900. Well, what am I in the mood for is the question. I am in the mood for a Sicilian. Let's play a Sicilian. Bishop c4. So this is, of course, not a first-rate move. There's nothing inherently wrong with bishop c4. And white can follow it up in a variety of ways, like knight f3 or c3. Now, you don't want to commit to a setup too early here. So I don't love the move g6 this early. You want to make a development move that is going to give you maximum flexibility. And that development move is in my view, knight c6. This is the most open-ended move. And f4 by white and transposing into some sort of a strange Grand Prix attack with the bishop having been committed a little bit too early to c4. So how can we exploit the premature development of white's bishop to c4? I've talked about this idea before, and we would quite possibly play it even if the bishop was not on c4. And again, to those watching on YouTube, I apologize for the chewing. I've got a sore throat. And we go d5 with tempo. So the bishop looks really, really dumb here. Thank you, golfer, for the tier 1 ED. And bishop b3. So white is flirting with disaster here. c4, bishop a4, and the bishop holds on by a thread. Now, I think a lot of you looking at this position would be very tempted to play b5. The problem with that approach is that white has ways to defend against c4. You're not going to trap the bishop because white can go c3 or white can go a3. And I'm not a huge fan of overplaying the queen side like that. It's a lot more important to get your king side pieces out than it is to try to trap your opponent's bishop and play for gimmicks. So as unsexy as this move may seem, I like the idea of just developing. Okay, now we have a slightly sexier way of developing. Now, some of you might understand that rook e1 is an idea that white has, and so you could get this bishop out to e7 so that rook e1 is not a check, and then you can castle. But if you want to play very ambitiously, you remember the idea that just because a move isn't effective in one position doesn't mean that you shouldn't consider it in another. And if you look very carefully, one thing you might notice, one thing that I've talked a lot about is when white pushes the f-pawn, one of the main weakness of that move is that it creates vulnerability down the a7 g1 diagonal. So you might say, well, okay, well, how do I exploit that? I can't play bishop c5 check, but what you can do is play c4. And you might think that our intention is then to get the bishop out to c5 with check, but let's not hurry. You might say, well, okay, I can also play queen b6 check, and both of those moves are fine, but there is a tactic. And if you look very carefully, you can see that you can use the idea of queen b6 and apply it in a much more dangerous way. This is an amazing tactic. What's the move? You don't start with queen b6. You start with the move b5. And the idea is that after bishop takes b5, you fork the bishop and the king with queen b6 check. And I didn't even see this initially when our opponent castled. At first, I saw c4 with the idea of bishop c5, but this is amazing. Oh, and now, if you want to take this to the next level, how should we deal with knight e5? And this is really cool. Like, we can give queen b6 check and then take on a4, but if you really want to rub it in your opponent's face, we can just take on a4 first, using the same tactic to pick off the knight. Knight d4, we take it. And it's important in such a position not to rest on your laurels. You know, a lot of people, they win a piece and then they get very disoriented. You're like, well, how should we play? There's essentially two ways of thinking here. One approach is just to play it very safe and just get your bishop out and then castle. And there ain't nothing wrong with that, with the safe approach. But if you want to play for maximum, you could consider a move such as knight e4. I mean, knight g4 is also very interesting. And then bishop c5, and you might have ideas of developing a smothered mate. Between knight e4 and knight g4, I do like knight e4 more. because it also closes the e-file, and so it doesn't allow white to defend the f2 square with check. Like white can still defend the f2 square with his queen, but he can't do it with check. And this arrangement creates all sorts of tactical concepts, and familiarity with basic tactical patterns will help you find them. Now, some of you might be aware that bishop g4 is an interesting idea. Bishop g4, queen takes g4, and then we're very, very close to being able to play queen g1 check. If rook takes g1, we have a mate on f2. The problem is that after bishop g4, queen g1, there's king takes g1, but you can set this up. You can set this up in a variety of ways. You can play h5 to prepare bishop g4. But a more elegant way to do this is to play bishop c5, as many of you have suggested. And this also prepares bishop g4. And I think we're going to win this game precisely in that way. Another draw offer. My guess is that our opponent is going to go like d3. Okay, he goes h3, so that's a good move. But now we can take this further to the next level and make what incredibly powerful move to reinforce the threat of bishop g4. What you may notice is that when you haven't castled yet, that could actually be used in your advantage. You can play h5, and now bishop g4 is a threat. Why is it a threat? Because after h takes g4, you recapture with the h pawn. That is a check against the king. That is essentially checkmate. And there we go, bishop g4. And this is a total beatdown. That is why you need an opening repertoire at this rating, because you just, otherwise you're going to start getting killed. Queen e3 is a nice move, actually. To be honest, I didn't see it, but in another draw offer. And I've played people like that. So we shouldn't panic, and our instinct in such a position should be to simplify. The moment our opponent played h3, you should have noted that let me just decline the draw. You should have noted that the g3 square is now a weakness. So in your mind, you should have said, well, if the queen ever moves away from f3, I'll have a fork on g3. So combining that observation with this position, the simplest is just to take the queen and then deliver a nice little fork on g3, and then we'll be up a rook. And the rest will be really, really easy. Okay, and there we go. Yeah, that was a nice game. I mean, it was short, but it was quite instructive. Bishop c4. Bishop c4 is already very dubious. And, if white wants to play this line, all you have to do is play knight c3 and then play a Grand Prix attack. Because once this already happens, the bishop just looks incredibly stupid on c4. Now, to make this work, white should probably have gone knight c3 here. This would have limited the damage, because d5 is still impossible. But here, black is pretty spoiled for choice. We could play a6 to prepare b5, for example. That seems like a good approach. The bishop is just very, very misplaced here. So, knight f3, d5, trade, bishop e3. What if they go e5? If they go e5, then... Oh, I think there's knight e5. There's this tactic, queen h4. I've seen this idea before, so just note this down, by the way. This kind of tactic with a bishop on c4 and a queen on h4. So e5 isn't even possible. Can't they just play a3, b5, bishop b2? Well, yes, but don't think of the point of our play as being to trap the bishop. We're not trying to trap the bishop. We're trying to gain control of the center. So the point of e65 isn't that I'm seriously flirting with the idea of trapping his bishop. I didn't even realize that would be a possibility. It's more that we're just gaining control of the center. Now, our opponent should have gone to b5, where the bishop is at least doing something. And I think we've even had this type of position before in the speedrun, and the setup that I recommend here is to get this bishop out to d6, let's say white castles, and then to get the knight out to e7. This connects the knights and just creates a very compact and manageable piece setup in the center. So I quite like this arrangement of pieces. I like it more than playing knight f6 here. But after bishop b3, the knight on c6 is not under pressure. So this changes the situation. especially since bishop d6 gives up a pawn for no good reason. So for this reason, we decided to amend our strategy. And to be honest, I didn't see c4 and b5 initially. You know, at first I was going to go c4 and then bishop c5 check. Now if white plays d4, we can en passant with check. So white has to move the king, and I thought we would castle and just have a great position with good development. But then, you know, then I spotted b5. And you might say, well, how did you actually see b5? And, you know, people watching this on YouTube, or you guys probably will get a little bit annoyed at my answer. You know, I can give you all of the tactical logic behind the move b5, and I did, right? As soon as white played f4, you should make the observation that this diagonal is weakened. Coupled with the fact that b5 is an idea in such positions that traps the bishop, you have to put two and two together. But at some point, you know, you have to find such moves subconsciously, and that's why solving is so important, right? If you try to reason your way through every tactic, you're not going to get very far in blitz and rapid games. So that is how tactical mastery works. You just see these kinds of moves without actually consciously always making all of the necessary observations, which is what happened here. And once b5 is played, the game is over. I don't think white has any way to save the bishop. I don't think white has any way to save the bishop. I mean, white can give a check on e1, but that doesn't change anything. We just block with our bishop. This maybe even makes things worse. Queen e2, bishop e7. Yeah, it's over. So, and b takes a4 is particularly nice, and then queen b6 check. But, you know, in such a position, if you're not sure about whether to go for the kill, you should always err on the side of playing cautiously. So a move like bishop e7 here would be totally viable as well, and you're just up a piece. So don't feel like you always have to go for the kill as soon as you've won some material. It's just that white was so undeveloped here that, you know, it's clear that black can get away with this. Yeah, chess is largely pattern recognition. Bishop c5, threatening knight f2, and threatening bishop g4. So the actual idea is to play bishop g4, queen g4, and then the smothered mate, queen g1 and knight f2. It doesn't lose another piece. Knight e5 doesn't actually lose another piece because he actually took the knight on c6, so it was just a trade. Any questions? If I have the white pieces, I resign. At this point, you know, white's last chance is to play d3 here, preventing c4. Once c4 is allowed, I think it's over. Okay. All right, guys, it's getting late. I'm pretty under the weather, so I'm gonna go to bed. But hope you enjoyed. Thanks everybody for the support. It means a lot. Thanks everybody for hanging out. Have a good one.